episode 14. So we're going to talk about inspiring staff now, Miguel. So this is an operational topic. I'm Roger Curlin. This is Miguel Miranda. I'm so excited to deliver this training for you, and proud of our sponsorship and support through University of South Florida St. Pete and Big C. So we always try to give a shout out every so often to the team. Staff are the fuel that drive restaurants. I think there is no way around that statement. And the three keys to engaging inspiring that staff are engagement. You've got to educate and equip them, and then you have to empower them. So now that sounds easy. There's a lot of pieces to each of those, but really, if you're a GM and an owner and you want to inspire loyalty and you want to inspire achievement, those are the three pieces you need to look at. Staff right now, and as we pop in and out of our COVID mind during these episodes, staff's really nervous right now. Many of them have been without work for a couple of months. They're back to work, but they don't know perhaps how long. They don't know. They may be at a restaurant that may not make it, and they may kind of know that. And you also have a customer base that's a little bit skittish right now. There's a whole new set of norms, whole new set of actions, responsibilities that weren't required a few months ago. So staff is a real pivotal part of what we need to focus on as owners and GMs right now. And my PS to this is staff's going to cost you a lot more money starting next year with the increase in pay. So if you create an amazing, reliable, low turnover team right now, it is going to pay huge dividends for you in 2021. So that's kind of the topic that we're going to focus on. And Miguel, I'm going to let you kick us into engagement. I'm going to give one statement, and it's your statement, so I'm setting you up perfectly now. Engaged people engage people. We've all seen those staff that are dialed in, right? They're there, they're focused, they're clicking. And we've seen those that are dialed out and are just, you can't wait to get to the corner and text. So what are some of the questions that we as owners and GMs need to be asking ourselves to get ready to engage them?
Yeah, well, I will say this again, and if you're taking notes, if you want to take one note, would be the one line of engaged people engage people. Mm-hmm. And so if you've put it so well that engaged staff is really critical for success, so it means you have to engage them. They have to be engaged, you have to engage them. And so what are the questions you're going to ask of them to make sure that they are staying on top of what's important here? First and foremost is, do they know the values of the company? Mm. If they don't know the values of the company, then they're hard to really be engaged with what we're trying to accomplish. Again, and we said in prior episodes, this is not some core values on the wall that sound very corporate and no one really knows it, and it sounds very, to some aspect, a little too, PC and whatever. Right. Make it your own language. It's got to fit your brand, but it's got to be something that is living and breathing. If they know what those are, then they know what the rules of the house are. Right. Thinking back on your childhood, in your house, and your parents, you knew what the rules of the house were. And you played by those rules, or you intentionally went across the line, but there was no idea, I didn't know that I had to be home by midnight. It was clear from your parents what time you had to be home and what the consequence was, as well as what was rewarded. And so really understanding the core values are really important there. And so how does that match up to the leadership's core values? Right. Because you could say all the day in the world that I want, hey, take care of the customer. If I don't take care of you as a leader, then really what I'm saying to you is that's false. Do what as I'm doing. Right. And so there's going to be a big schism between the two situations. So understanding what is the leadership's core values. And by the way, in some places you're running and maybe by yourself, but more often than not, there's multiple managers or shift leaders that also have to understand those are the values of the leader. And which first means that you have to engage your staff. Right. If you want your staff to be engaged, that means you have to engage them. And so if you have shift leaders running your restaurant or part-time assistant managers, make sure they understand how to go through that process of engaging their staff on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, it's communicating that vision, that mission, and the goals of the business. A staff person may know what success for them may look like, but they may not understand what success for the business looks like. When they can focus on that, they can tag into that, and it actually helps make them more successful. And so that communication has to happen. And as you said, everybody has to live that mission. Practice what you preach is certainly something that staff's going to call you on.
Right. Well, not only what practicing what we preach, but also is if we're trying to accomplish something, I want to know how I fit into that mission.
Right.
I want to know where I stand on that mission, and if we're actually winning.
Right.
So I think a lot of times for me, when I was interacting with my team, I would use sports analogies. And if we talked about sports, you and I talk a lot about sports.
Absolutely.
Not sure what's going to happen with college football this year. We'll see. But if I'm on a football team, I want to know whether I'm the quarterback or offensive lineman, or if I'm on defense. So where do I fit in this game? How well am I doing in my role? And then what does the scoreboard look like? And man, we all want to play to win.
Right.
Not having a scoreboard, we don't know if today was a good day or a bad day. If it was a so-so day, it doesn't get me engaged. I mean, imagine watching. We go to see, Florida State and Florida.
Sure.
Football game. Maybe it's back in the day when they were really both really good at the same time. It was up for a championship or something like that. But there was no scoreboard.
Right.
There was no lines on the field. How exciting is that game? I forget about the players. So we as fans would probably walk away. We're like, what are we watching here?
Right.
And so really understanding what's happening is important to get them engaged to what's inspire them to actually even try harder.
Well, I think part of what's going on too, Miguel, is going into this period of this crisis. Going into it, it was super difficult to find, train, and maintain a team. And I saw a lot of leaders. I saw a lot of leaders give up and said, "Listen, it's just too hard. I'm just not going to try." I would say then the answer was wrong to give up, and now it's even more wrong to give up. You have to spend that time and you have to spend that energy to get this right. The ROI on it, there's no other thing that influences ROI and profitability, I feel, at the restaurant level than getting this right. And so that's why this, to me, is such a great
It's the foundation. I mean, I think we all know that if we gave you a house, we said, hey, we're going to build you a house, probably the most exciting part for you would be to decorate it, to paint it, the inside walls, and paint your favorite pictures and knickknacks. But if you have no foundation, sure enough, those walls start crumbling down on you. Right. And you have a bad situation. So yeah, it's not sexy, and sometimes it's tedious. You really got to take time out of your day.
Yeah.
But it's laying down a foundation that once it's up, you don't think twice about it. And the whole flywheel effect, it is moving and growing for you. And I'll tell you one thing: if you've got your core team engaged, as you bring new people on, they'll help you keep them engaged. It makes it so much easier for you. It's just a lot of hard work up front.
Well, and one of the things, and you and I've worked with a lot of restaurant owners, and one frustration line, why don't employees do what they're supposed to, right? That exclamation point, question mark.
Blame on them.
So here's some of the, I'm just going to read you a couple of the top reasons, and then kind of the epiphany, but it's not an epiphany that developed from that. They don't know why they should do it. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They think your way is not going to work. They think their way is better. They think something else is more important than that thing that they're supposed to do. There's no positive consequence to them doing it. There's no negative consequence if they don't do it. All of these things, so I'm listening to these, and these were done through a study. 25,000 managers in the industry compiled all of this. The list of reasons reflect leadership's lack of engagement, educating, and equipping, and then empowering. All of those things, if you do those three, all those questions disappear. And that's in the control of the leaders. And so that's why this topic, to me, is really, really, really instrumental. Some engagement tips, Miguel. I know you're a fan of scoreboards, of challenges. One-on-ones are really super important. Making staff feel appreciated and needed. And those are two pieces. You've got to make staff feel that. That's with any worker. People don't leave companies. They leave people in management and leaders that aren't giving them what they need. You are amazing at understanding the nuances of really that pre-shift engagement. So if you could talk a little bit about pre-shift engagement.
Yeah, so tell you what, getting staff engaged is ridiculously simple. It's just not easy. And it takes discipline on your part as a leader. And I think probably the most disciplined thing you could be doing is having a daily pre-shift. I've trained and coached. There's hundreds of, close to thousands of managers, in my career, and whether as a manager or a consultant. And it's honestly one that I've told people that you've got to do. If you're doing anything at all, just do this one thing every single day. It's been the hardest to get people to do, to make it become a habit. But each one that actually has kind of gone over that threshold of making it a habit have all come back to me saying, my world has changed. And so maybe it's the second thing you should write down, if you write things down, is your pre-shifts, you have to get them done. And what is a pre-shift? This is not the litany of telling you what the specials are for the day or what you're out of. You could replace that with a bulletin board. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to replace it with a bulletin board and make your team write down themselves, because you telling them on the pre-shift, they're probably ignoring you most of the time if that's all you're saying. Having a board to make sure you're checking them out. But what does a pre-shift do? What a pre-shift does is it resets the day for what's about to happen. It could be multiple pre-shifts a day, so it could be resetting for lunch, it could be resetting for breakfast, it could be resetting for dinner, but it's basically what's about to happen. Again, I've said before, the old Braveheart, or if you watch Any Given Sunday with Al Pacino at halftime, that amazing halftime speech he gives, really what the conversation at that point is, what are we about to go do? I need to take inventory of what your mentality is as an employee walking through the door, what's happening to your day. That's my quick one-on-one. Understanding, hey, you're feeling good, you're excited, you're not feeling bad, you had something happen at home, your car broke down, I don't care. I've got to figure out who you are now, but now we're going to have a pre-shift to reset the tone. And the three components for the pre-shift: inspect, inform, and inspire. What am I inspecting? Well, I want to know you have enough bullets. Plain and simple. We're about to go to battle. I don't care if you have a gun, but if you have no bullets, we're not going to win the battle. So what does that mean? Do you have a uniform that's actually complete? Do you look great? Do you look the part? Do we have all the inventory, actual food, all these things that we need to have? Or we are out of certain things? Does a place look clean? Are our tables in good shape? Are they wobbly? It sounds kind of crazy, but these are the basics. These are things that come up in the middle of the shift when all of a sudden a guest says, hey, my table's wobbly, and then you're running around trying to find something to straighten out the table, and what do you end up getting? Sugar packets, right? So that's great, but it also costs you money, and that's what ends up happening. Why? Because you didn't bother to inspect. Next year, you're going to inform. What are you going to inform? Well, this could be, quote, the specials conversation, although what I usually do, to me, specials are more inspect. If you're one of my servers, I would ask, hey, Roger, what are the specials for today? I want to know. I'm finding out, did Roger write them down? Did he figure out what it was? But I want him to tell me what's on the board. I want to tell me in his own words, what's the special for the day? I want to inspect, but I also want to be informed at that point of, hey, how are you going to sell this thing to me? So really, special in those things are inspection point of view. And what are you informing? Hey, you know what? We're expecting rain this afternoon, so most likely maybe the patio is going to be shut down early, or we may not open it at all. Or you know what? We have graduation happening. We're going to have larger parties. These are things that they may not think of because you're in power of the restaurant. You're the ones who's kind of looking out a little further out. You kind of clue them into what they're about to what's going to happen for that day.
And let me tag on to that for 1 minute, Miguel. Now, with COVID, there's a lot to inform about.
Processing procedures.
Right, because there is, until it's habit, you've got to continue to teach. So I think right now we have a more robust inform than typically. So
agreed. Yeah, and on top of that, I will say this: a lot of times our point of view is we may inform the team about something new. At best once, maybe twice, because in my minds, as we've been thinking about it, we've been talking about it in our own heads, maybe in our private meetings with ownership or managers, and we said it once at one pre-shift, or maybe we told a couple of employees, but we didn't tell all the employees. So I will tell you that on the inform, whatever your script is for that, say it the entire week. And if it's super important, say it for 2 weeks. Say it to the point that your team says, yes, we know, we got it. Great, now you can quiz them. Now you're going to inspect if they actually know it. Point being is, don't assume because you've said it once, and I've found myself multiple times guilty of that, and I realized, I didn't really tell everybody. I didn't inform everybody. Right. I didn't make it that high priority. And the more often you say it, your team's going to pick up on that and realize this is a really important thing. Final I is inspire. And I think this is the last thing you should be doing in your pre-shift. By the way, pre-shifts run between 5 to maximum 10 minutes. So you were saying a lot of information, which means you got to plan for it. But inspire is probably the part that is the hardest to do. It's the time that takes more planning on your part, and you've got to think it through. And I know some people, and I've done it myself in the past, where you kind of did it off the cuff and it worked out for you. It's a dangerous game to play because it's what sets the emotional tone for your team moving forward. That's, again, this is where you start thinking Braveheart, Al Pacino and Any Given Sunday.
Got to throw it in. Tim Tebow's halftime speech, right?
Tim Tebow, I know, the Gators. But the point being is that there it is that speech to really get you going, and whatever it be. And so what examples could it be? It could be just, hey, we're we're here for the community. It could be that kind of thing. It could be simply as I've done it before. I pulled the Yelp reviews and I'm reading. I said, man, there was an amazing review yesterday that popped up about Roger's service, and Roger's here. And I want to talk about what Roger did. It's amazing. Tell you what. That's inspiring. First, Roger's going to feel really good about the fact they got shared. Yeah. The rest of the team's going to recognize, man, that was awesome. If they care about Roger, they're going to come around him and high-five him and make him feel really good. But also in their mind thinking, that is what gets rewarded. Right. That's what gets people talking about. And so if you want to write a third thing down, is what gets inspected, what gets measured gets done, or what gets inspected gets rewarded. And so the mentality is people are looking for what's really important for you. Back in my childhood, we had a curfew of 12 o'clock. I would get home around 12:05. Nothing happened. I actually wouldn't get in trouble until 12:30. So guess what? The curfew was not 12 o'clock. It was 12:30. And so I learned quickly what it was. And same thing in business. Whatever you're inspecting, whatever you're talking about is what people are going to say is really important. And it's not just for the negatives, it's for the positives. So even at a pre-shift, talking about a great review or a phone call you got, or maybe something you observed, is an inspiring moment to really rally the troops. Yeah, and it comes from the heart. The other engagement piece is the post shift, right? We've seen the whole gamut of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to post shift. I'm going to use your quote again, but this one's not from you. This is Nicholas Butler. There are three types of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. So, you've got all of those types of people. The post-shift recap is to get to the point of where everybody was at and to get everybody on the right page that sets the tone for the next time. So talk a little bit about post-shift philosophy. There's entire industries that have made billions of dollars on post-shifts. And one's called ESPN. They don't actually make it a single game. They talk about, they do a pre-shift, what's going to happen, and they do a post-shift. What just happened? Let's analyze it. And so if you're not analyzing what happened in your team, then you really don't know how to tweak it, how to improve it. Whether that special really is going well or not going well, yeah, you can look at your POS, your numbers, but you don't really know what happened until you talk to the people. So first I'll say about a post shift is not an interrogation, it's a conversation. It's about, now you did everything terrible and I saw you not do this, not do that. It's really, hey Roger, how was your shift? What did you learn? I want to understand is really from his point of view, because he's a trusted partner of mine in this business of my restaurant. I want to understand is what he saw. What kind of feedback? What can I not know by just reading the numbers of my P&L or my POS report? I didn't understand that. So it's having those conversations about which direction we need to go on specials, what's going well with maybe the COVID procedures we have in place. Are people excited about it, not excited about it? Are they asking certain questions? And so it also tells me is how engaged Roger is. Right. If he tells me, everything was good, and that's all he says every single day, I start wondering maybe Roger may not be as engaged because he's not really recognizing what's happening, hence your quote. But more often than not, if you're asking these questions, especially on a regular basis, people start realizing, I better have something. Yeah. I'm going to be engaged. I'm going to connect. I'm going to start sharing what's happening here. Your job is to take notes, look at data, and start realizing where do I pivot and where do I go from there. And so post shifts are important. So again, same as a pre-shift. You have to schedule them. You have to plan them out. You have to part of your work day realizing, hey, my server's about to clock out, so I need to sit down and do their cash outs individually. Or maybe it's just a one-on-one I have every once in a while. But really, it's something you have to put in your schedule, make it a habit for yourself. And I love the fact that you say, don't just say good job today, right? Because that becomes almost like that you walk up to someone
how are you doing? I mean, it's just it's meaninless almost.
Yeah, it's the worst thing to say. Good job at what? And really, if I've had managers tell me, leaders before tell me, hey, good job, and I've asked them, so what did I do well? And they had nothing, which basically meant to me is that you weren't really watching. You had no clue. It's like me saying, yeah, Eli Manning played pretty well last night. And you're like, right. but he retired. I'm like, oh, okay, right. Yeah. Well, I didn't watch the game. I had no clue. I just made an assumption. And the reality is my good job, was it a great job? You didn't really see what I did. Right. So almost say nothing if you have nothing to say.
Yeah. And I like the other what else you said about inspirational people inspire others, right? So creating that inspiration. We don't take care of ourselves enough as owners and GMs. So making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we get the time and the rest to refocus and to create that clarity. It's almost like this self-fulfilling wheel that as we get into that pattern and we become inspiring to our team, they deliver better, and then the stress reduces and everything the oil flows much easier.
That is probably one of the most important things that we could say to you as owners and leaders. You're probably under more stress now than I would ever, for sure. And I was probably in the country. Business owners right now are under intense pressure. Even the ones whose businesses are starting to come back, there's so much pressure to get things right and keep up with certain things. And so the natural tendency is to stop doing the things that fill your bucket. And what I mean by that, there's activities in your life, whether it's rest, whether it's watching a movie, whatever your hobby is. If you don't do those things, you don't get happiness or the joy that comes from those things for you. And so that bucket you have of energy or emotional energy gets diminished. And it's almost like you had a bucket and you just punched a hole in the bottom of it and it's just seeping out. COVID knocked a massive hole in our energy bucket. The lower that bucket gets, the more depressed you get. And the more depressed you are, the worse you are at making decisions. The more you lose your temper, which you're trying to inspire a team. Yeah. And it keeps going lower and lower. And eventually, and I hate to say it, and this is what the studies show, is the lower it gets, you get suicidal. Right. And so your job, which may sound counterintuitive, is to stop and take time away from the business and do something to fill your bucket. And I had this conversation with one of my business owners. We had to pull her aside, and actually we mandated for her to go home for 2 days, spend time with her family and her kids. And by the way, wasn't Mother's Day. I'm talking about before this, saying you are going too far. You're running ragged, and this is not good for you personally. This business you have is important, and I tell you what, if you lost it and you went bankrupt, it would be really tough. But it's not going to be the end of you.
Right. It's so important. And as much time as we spend on engagement, the other two pieces are also as important. We don't have to spend as much time, I feel, on these topics, but I do want to make people aware. So the educating and equipping is a very extremely important part of the formula. Training has long been a feature of the national chains, and in many ways that's where they outperform independents, probably clearer than anything else. Independents typically focus on what I call the shadowing technique, or you teach the kid to swim by throwing him in the water. So that's traditionally what independents have focused on. Some of the keys that I feel are working towards an automation of some of those training processes, whether it's by videos, making lists, digitally, because you don't want to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again as a manager, as an owner, as a GM, when you can have a way and most people are comfortable with technology learning now. In creating the basic information, yes, you augment it by role play. Yes, you augment it by hands-on teaching and mentoring, but creating that core, it's never been easier and cheaper than to create the knowledge base digitally for your staff. I say it a lot, you say it a lot, you got to explain the why to the staff. So if you're educating them, if you're equipping them, you have to tell them the why behind that education and that equipping. I also believe, and this is from youth on, instill a passion for knowing, create a passion for knowledge. Not everybody has that, but I feel you can create that. There are steps you can do to reward that and encourage that. So I think that's also something really, really powerful to think of as an owner. And the goal, I feel, with the educating and equipping is to create efficient, effective behavior that becomes a habit. That's really where we're at. I want to shift now, Miguel, to empowerment. So I think of some of the best, greatest companies for empowering their team. The Ritz-Carlton and Publix have just done a stellar job doing that. That's it's kind of the gold standard for empowering employees. What are your thoughts on what empowerment means to the business?
Well, first of all, what empowerment does is it actually multiplies your effect as a leader. Generally, we typically think that only we can handle all big decisions, guest recoveries, and things like that, and we're going to run ragged. And so the two examples you gave, Ritz-Carlton and Publix, one thing they have in common is they're multi-unit. And so the more centralized these big decisions baked, the bigger you are as an organization, the harder it is to keep up with it and more apt to make mistakes. Right. And so it's actually empowerment is really expanding your influence. Now, you can only empower the people that you have engaged and you have equipped. And so it's not about telling anyone to go do something. It's first they have to understand why they're there and how to go do it. But once your empowerment is really key. So Ritz-Carlton is famous for any employee, and so this could be a housekeeper. They have the authority to use up to $2,000 to correct any situation without asking for permission. Imagine your organization if you had that in place. Your dishwasher, who you just hired 2 weeks ago, has the ability to spend, let's say, $500 on anything he encounters to correct a guest experience. And so I think if you put it's such a high hurdle for yourself, for your organization, you will quickly go back and realize your engage process is going to be upped, and definitely your educating impact and equipping part of the training is going to be upped. Why? Because you realize, oh man, I've given them that authority of so high. And so what most people do is I'm going to give them zero authority and I'll control the rest, which means I don't really care much about engaging, don't really care much about equipping and educating. And so I think that's the most important piece, is that it frees you up. You can go on vacation for a month if you wanted to, right, because you've got a team who can handle the decision making. That's what empowering is. It's about making decisions. And so you've got to get them thinking like you would.
You could not have said it better. When I go into one of my restaurant partners and the owner is on vacation, those are the places that they've done a great job on all three of those, and especially the empowerment. I know my places that, and there are places out there, the owner can never leave because they've not created that yet. To me, empowerment creates pride in work for the employees, and it also creates that entrepreneurial mindset and creates this very, very nice loop back. My final thought, and then your final thought, Miguel, employees mainly underperform and leave organizations when they don't feel appreciated. So if as you said, one note, one scribble, for leaders, make your team feel appreciated is kind of my final thought. Miguel, any final thoughts from you on that?
Obviously this is a topic I can go on for days and days and days, and I usually do. Again, if there's takeaways you're going to have here is this. Remember the 3 E's: engage, educate, empower. Look at your day. As you wrap up your day, your work day, if you're not journaling, start journaling, but if you look back at your day and you made 3 columns: engage, educate, empower, and write down all the activities you did under each column for your entire day. And you know what? If you start off today and you realize you've got 0 under each one, then okay, that's fine. You have a starting point. Right. Your job is to get it better day by day. So look back and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do 1 engage activity. I'm going to do 1 educate activity. I'm going to do 1 empowering activity. And it may take a while for you to build up, and maybe your team's a little more further along, but you have to measure your own progress. I've said at the beginning that if you watch a football game with no lines in the sand, in the field and all that, would be terrible. Well, that is your leadership game as well. You need to take your own data sets and see, hey, where you're improving. And some people out there are phenomenal leaders, are doing all these things right, and some are saying, I don't know where to start. And I'm telling you to start right now. Engage, educate, empower. Measure that, and you'll be successful.
That was episode 14. See you in a few minutes on episode 15. Take care.